thank you for coming out on this rainy day. This is a great turnout. We really appreciate it. Dropping my stuff. Um, I'm Sue Heitmeller. I'm the chairperson for our social ministry committee. And on behalf of our committee in St. Luke, we wanted to introduce and welcome everybody. We know we have people that aren't normally our members, so it's just thrilling to have so many other people come. The reason for this seminar is we want to help understand this complex topic and be supportive of each other. And a verse from the Bible, Galatians 6:2, says, "Share one another's burdens." And that's what we're meant to do, to help each other. The other thing is, we are so much more, and I hope that we get this information. We are so much more than our brains. God made us complex folks and with a heart and a soul. And so if we forget, he never forgets. And so we have a spiritual memory that's deep within our soul, and that's the good news. That is really good news. And so I believe that we will never forget love, and a person might not be able to express it, but love is deep within us. So we are grateful that you are here. We are so thankful that we have this opportunity to share this information, because it's really important. The more we know, the more we can help our neighbors, our family, our friends. So, and I'd like to just have a short prayer. Dear Lord, thank you for this time that we are together. We praise you that you have made us wonderful and complex, and that you are the ones that we can take our burdens to, that we can share, and that you will love us no matter what. And I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. So now, I want to introduce our guest speaker. And this is Kelly Cahill. And let me get her information here. Aha, Kelly. Okay. Kelly works for Lower Cape Fear, and she has many years of experience. She has her master's in nursing, certified as hospice and palliative care. She has 20 years plus of years in oncology, 24 years in palliative care and hospice, and she hails originally from Michigan, but she currently lives in Wilmington, and she's married and has 2 sons, and I'm really grateful that she's able to share all her knowledge with us.
Thank you. Well, good morning, everyone. It is a pleasure to be here. I got to figure out how far away to stand from the microphone so you don't get a blur. I just felt like this really strange force driving here, and I realized where I was going, and that was to St. Luke's, and that's my husband's name, and he's a 4th generation Luke. So I feel today was meant to be that I could be here with you and share information. As you know, dementia is the hot topic for everything. How many of you have seen a commercial about dementia lately? The last commercial I saw, I believe it was probably 18 hours ago when I was watching TV last night, was a new drug that has come out, and it's to help people with behavioral problems. And the first sentence about side effects was sudden death. And I thought to myself, to have that as the first side effect, I just don't even think I would want anybody in my family to try it. But of course, you see the nice perky lady after she's taken her medicine and everything is good. I gave you a couple handouts, and the first handout that we're going to speak about is normal aging versus not normal aging. Because how do you really know if you're normal or not. How many of you think you're normal? Okay, when we get done with this, you may be going, I'm not quite so sure. But I always like to give concrete examples of things that have happened in my 40 some years as a registered nurse, of true examples, so you'll have a better understanding of it. Any literature that you see a little feather on is Teepa Snow's workings. Teepa Snow is the guru of dementia care. She speaks all over the world. She lives right here in North Carolina, and she teaches class upon class upon class. And every year, for those of us that are certified, we have to go through her class for 8 hours and be recertified so that she knows all the people that are going out in the community know what they're talking about. So I'm up for certification the end of May, and I will willingly do it again because I just always learn so much from all my certifications. So PAC stands for Positive Approach to Care, and that is what Teepa Snow is known for. So I want to give her credit when you see some of those little feathers floating on the pages, that it is indeed from her workings. Okay, let's talk about normal aging. We're going to go through this first column, and I'm going to give you examples. This is very interactive. It's very informal. So just if you have the answer, shout it out. I can't recall a word, but I can describe the word to get it to pop up. Okay, so I say, you know that sign at the end of our street, and it's red and it's an octagon shape and it has letters on it. Oh, what's the name of it? Stop sign. My dad gave me one. God bless him. He'll be 92 next month. My dad gave me one last week when I spoke to him on the phone, because we're from Michigan, the state with the hand. And he said, I said, what'd you do today, Dad? He said, well, Kellyanne, it was a very busy day. He said, a lady came over, and it's my cleaning day, and I have to wait till she starts singing to me before I start cleaning. And when the lady is done singing, I stop cleaning. And honest to goodness, I went, what the heck? I'm going to be calling my siblings when I hang up, because this is not right, okay? Well, what it turned out to be is that when he remembered the lady's name, her name was called Alexa. And my sister-in-law programmed his radio, stereo, whatever, to play 3 hours of music, and Alexa would start him off. And when Alexa was done singing all his favorite songs, she turns off, and he knew his cleaning was done for the day. But it took him a while, and I could not think of what the heck. My mom had just died, and I'm like, does he have a girlfriend already? Is Alexa coming to his house to help him? You know, is it some neighbor down the street? But anyway, so that's normal aging. We can describe things, but it takes a little while for the word to pop up, okay? It may be in the middle of the night. So last weekend, we had a girls' weekend down at Wrightsville Beach, and our book club went down there, and we were trying to remember a volunteer hospice person from 20 years ago, and we're all old-timers at hospice, and we were like, Olga, no, Oompa, no. None of us could remember this lady's first name, but we remembered her last name. The next morning, I woke up, and my girlfriend Sue had left me a voicemail and said, her name is Lala, and it came to me at 2 a.m. So Normal aging, it eventually came to the front of her brain. Okay? Has that happened to anybody where you can't think of the word, but it comes later? Oh, all the time for me, all the time. Give people time to process information, and we need to go more slowly. We're in a very fast paced world. Everything we do is fast, fast, fast. And when you have younger people around you, they consider old 65 and older. I recently got that Medicare A card. I was very excited. So we're old people if we're over the age of 65. That's what the Centers for Disease Control consider us. So we have to remember that when we're talking to our peers, we have to speak a little slower and let them have time to process. Now, honestly, raise your hand. Does anybody know my two sons, Michael and Zachary? Okay, I'm safe. I'm going to tell a Mike and Zach story. I call them thing one and thing two because you just never know what you're going to get when they walk in the house. They are both fast talkers, and they mumble and they talk when they're behind your back because they're in the refrigerator helping themselves to some free food. And they're like, Mom, do 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 do, boom 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 boom, and I'll turn around and I'll say, "Can you repeat that?" or "Excuse me," or "Can you say that again?" And what do you think they say? You are getting so old that you don't understand what we're saying. Well, first of all, if you would articulate your words and look at me when you're speaking and not be making a sandwich and speak a little bit slower, I would get it on the first time. So we as adults have to remember that when we're with our peers, speak a little bit slower. Give people time to process what you're saying. We are also slower to think. So what happens if I ask this lady in front of me a question and she doesn't answer right away? What do you think I might do? I'll ask the question again. I may speak louder because obviously she's deaf, right? Because she didn't answer. I may reword the sentence because obviously she didn't comprehend the first time I gave her the question. I speak over her and answer for her. And those are all things that we do not want to do with normal aging folks. We do not want to press them into giving an answer quickly. How long do you think it takes somebody over the age of 65 to respond to a question? So it takes about 10 to 15 seconds for us to pull that information and bring it to the front. No. My clicker does not work fast on Jeopardy. No, it doesn't. I always bring my brain with me in case I forget what I'm going to say. But this is the normal sized human brain. And anatomically, it is put together so that everything has a rhyme or reason. So if I'm asking you a question and it takes you a little bit longer, that frontal lobe, that temporal lobe has to process information before it spits it out. Now, if I am giving you a visual, the back part, the occipital lobe, has to, in the nano bazillionths of a second, bring that color all the way to the front where the eye sockets are that can see the colors. So the brain is the most intricate part of the body. It's phenomenal. And I'm going to show you some pictures so you have a better idea of what a normal brain looks like and what an abnormal brain looks like. I'll point it that way. Okay, as we get older, normal aging, we are slower to do things. So I look back to when I was in my 30s. That was pretty darn good years. And I was a nurse in Michigan. And we only worked 8-hour shifts, but you had to punch in at 6:45 for day shift. So I would set my alarm for 5:45. I could take a shower, put my makeup on, get dressed, dry my hair, make my bed, get my Pop-Tart, warm up the car because there was probably a blizzard the night before, and I could get to work at 6:45, punch in, still have time for another cup of coffee, and I did all of that like that. Now I have to put my clothes out the night before because God forbid I have to think about it in the morning. What will I wear? That'll take an hour. And I have to set my alarm a lot earlier because I have found out that I can't stand and do a lot of things anymore. I have to sit to button my shirt. I have to sit to put my shoes on. I have to sit to pull my pants up. Then I stand and then I'm doing one of these. And it's amazing as we get older, the things that we could do so fast now take us a little bit longer to do. In your own personal lives, what do you find is taking you a little bit longer to do? Everything. Does anybody have a specific example? Up and down stairs, excellent. Who said cleaning? Excellent. So in the old days, I would clean my whole place on a Saturday morning. Spick and span, I'm good for the week. Now, I might do one bathroom on Monday and another bathroom on Wednesday, and I might hit the kitchen on Thursday. It is so overwhelming for me to clean the whole house on the same day. So I have to break things down into little pieces. When I speak at other churches or at the Area Agency of Aging or senior centers, a lot of people say it takes me longer to grocery shop. So I don't know if that happens to any of you, where before your cart would just speed up and down. You could skip those 2 aisles because you didn't have a pet and you didn't need any soap products. But people have said, boy, it really takes me a long time to go grocery shopping now. So we're slowing up and it takes us a little bit longer to do things. May hesitate more when somebody asks us a question. How many of you have seen somebody look up at the roof, the ceiling, the sky, when you ask them a question and they don't know the answer? And they go, and they look around like the ceiling is going to come down and wave the word right in front of them, right? But people have a habit of doing that. And I notice myself, I gaze when I'm trying to think of something. I gaze to an area, whether it's the ceiling or it's a part of the wall or whatever it may be. I happen to be a gazer. So I keep thinking those words will come really, really easy if I gaze a little bit. More likely to look before I leap. Now, when I left Wilmington this morning, the weather forecast was showers for the afternoon. And I said to myself, it looks pretty darn gray outside. The showers are in the afternoon. I'll be back in Wilmington in the afternoon. What should I do? Should I take my raincoat and my umbrella? Should I leave it at home and take a chance? What should I do? In my 30s, I'd look outside. It's bright and sunny. The weatherman says 99% chance of rain. So I'd throw my umbrella in the back of the car. And when I sold my car, the umbrella was still there, right? But now we can't make quick decisions. We have to weigh the pros and cons of everything. So I did end up wearing a rain jacket, in which I was very thankful I did, because I was no longer out of Wilmington when the torrential rains hit me on the I-140. So I was glad I did. But as we get older, we're a little bit more cautious and we don't make snap decisions. Okay? Any questions so far? Anybody have any comments or share any stories? We'll know the person, but not know the name. Okay. Emily lives next door to me. Emily has lived there forever. And we know when the post lady comes because Emily and I go out and walk the long driveway together, and she'll say, "Hi, Kelly." And I say, "Hi, Emily." But today, as we're walking, she says, "Hi, Kelly." And I say, "Oh, hi, how you doing?" And all the way down that driveway, I'm like, what the heck is her name? I've lived by her all these years. I just can't remember it. But after I get the mail out of the box and I'm walking back up the driveway, I remember Emily. And I say, "Bye, Emily. Have a good day." She doesn't know that I forgot her name, but it took a while for it to click. Okay? So none of you know my dad, so I'm going to give another story about my dad. When I talk to my dad twice a week, he starts off with, "Hi, Stacy, how you doing?" That would be my little sister. And then he goes, oh, never mind. I know you're Kelly. Yep, I'm Kelly. "How's Nate and Olivia?" Those aren't my kids. I told you thing one and thing two, Mike and Zach. So he'll say, "Oh, never mind. You have Michael and Zach. How are Michael and Zach?" Then he forgets my husband's name, but then he'll remember it down the road and realize that Matt is my brother-in-law and not Luke, who is my husband. But he always catches himself, and it makes me feel better that he's still able to correct himself at 92 and that he comes up with that person's name. So like at my girlfriend's weekend last week, it took us over 8 hours for all 9 of us to think of our volunteer's name from 20 years ago. But we did it. So how many of you have forgotten somebody you know? You've forgotten their name. Yeah. Have you ever called your children by other children's names? Grandkids? We got too much stuff in our brain that we have to remember, right? We talked about may pause when finding a word. A lot of people do the That's perfectly normal. Give them their time and don't interrupt their thought process. Don't try to make them hurry up to remember it. Be patient. Be patient. New data reminds me of old data. So Emily's little daughter comes over and she got a new baby doll. And she is, Miss Kelly, look at my new baby doll." And I take the baby doll and I say, "I remember when I got my first baby doll. Oh my gosh. She had a string in her back and you would pull it and her little mouth would move. And her name was Chatty Cathy. And she had brown hair. And when my grandma didn't want us to play with her, she said she was paralyzed and to leave her in the corner. She did. And we'd say, "Grandma, can we play with Chatty Cathy?" And she said, "No, she's paralyzed. Leave her in the corner." She didn't want us messing her up. But what I did is I took over the story of my little neighbor girl. She was showing me her baby doll, new information, and I was talking about my information because it reminded me of being younger. And when I take over the story, how does it make that person feel like? Kind of not validated. She thinks her story's better than mine. But I caught myself and I said, this isn't about me. Tell me all about your baby doll and how many clothes you have and has she been to your school yet? Those kind of things. So that kind of gives you a little synopsis of what's normal, what's not. One of the things I want to talk to you about is files. How many of you know what a manila file is? Everybody raise your hand. How many of you know what a hanging olive green folder is? So I'm at the high school, I won't say which town, and I said, how many of you, these are high schoolers, how many of you know what a manila folder is? They got out their phones under the desk and they started texting, okay? And then I said, how many of you know what a hanging file is? And they had to text a picture of a hanging file. That's how far we've come. What I want to say to you is we all have files open in our brain. But the older we get, the less files can stay open at the same time. Okay? So when I'm in my 20s and 30s, I can keep 5 to 7 files wide open. I am a multitasker. And my thing 1 and thing 2 children that I adore can come in my house. They could be going through the pantry, open the refrigerator, making a sandwich. They're texting somebody. They've got earbud, whatever those buds are that don't have a connection or whatever. They're on their laptop. They're helping their dad with something. They're doing this. They are multitasking so many things. It makes my brain hurt. But they have youth on their side. Now, let's fast forward to the golden age of 60 plus. How many files do you think that we can have open at the same time and do a good job? Anybody want to go for 2? 1 to 2 files. So when we're younger, we can keep them all open and we can keep doing all these things. And you know, I remember when I could multitask. I remember those olden years when I was in college and high school and I could do 10 million things at the same time. Every committee, every say yes to everything, do this, do that. But now, if I have 3 open at the same time, which I did 2 weeks ago, I started feeling very overwhelmed. I didn't know what project to start on first. And I said, Kelly, you teach this class. Close 2 of your files. Because what happens to us when we have too many files that are open? Get what? We screw up? That plain and simple. You don't get anything done. Your desk or kitchen table or dining room table are a mess of all the things that you are going to do. You can't prioritize. You can't figure out what should I do first, what should I do second, what should I do third. So the whole pulling it together is keep 1 file open, complete that job, and then open your next file. And you will find that you are much more peaceful and much more serene in your daily living than having everything open at the same time. Okay? Now, here comes the fun part. We've gone through normal living. How many of you feel that you are a normally aging person? I see one person who doesn't have their hand up. Okay, so that's all part of normal aging. Do not berate yourself if you feel like you cannot get something right, okay? Just take a step back, close some of those files, and just work on one task at a time. Okay, now we're going to go to not normal aging. Unable to think the same. So I like to give live examples, as I told you. And here's a great example. How many of you have a cooktop range or electric stove? Most of us do, because it's hard to get a gas line in your house and have a gas stove. So you want to boil a pot of pasta, and you turn on the knob, and what color does the coils become when it gets hot? Red, right? So you dip your pasta in the pot, stir it up, it's all ready, you drain it, turn the knob off on the stove, and what happens to the color of the coils? It stays red for a little while, and then what happens? It slowly fades, and it gets like a little bit orangish, and then it gets brownish. But what pops up after that? The red light comes on that says hot surface. Somebody living with dementia does not know what that red button means. To them, it means absolutely nothing. So what do? They put their hand on the coil and they burn themselves and they start screaming. Because red buttons, coils, off, on means absolutely nothing. Who else would do something like that? Your child. How many times as mothers, as grandparents, have we said, don't touch, hot, hot. They'll burn yourself. And as soon as you turn around, their little finger is right over there because they have to test it. They burn their finger, and then they're, I burned my finger. So we have to remember that the human brain, when there's dementia involved, shrinks. And we're going to talk about that, how the cells change and how the cells are lost. Unable to do as before. We noticed two things in our Memory Partners program and our hospice program about two things that people have a hard time doing and they can't remember how. One is turning on the knobs to the shower, regulating the water, making sure they're not just turning on the cold or they're not just turning on the hot. It takes some work because you have to do both knobs and you have to put your hand under and then you have to look for the warm water, right? Okay, so people living with dementia do not have that capability or capacity to know that you have to regulate two knobs at the same time to get warm water. So a lot of times they may burn themselves or they may freeze themselves. When they step out of the shower, it is highly unlikely that their brain knows how to turn off the faucets. So they leave the water running, and then their caregiver is yelling at them saying, we're in a drought situation. Turn the water off. Why did you leave it running? Well, they don't know how to turn it off. So that's one thing that we see a lot of in my world. The second thing is tying shoes. Now, why do you think all of these insurance companies, including Medicare, are telling you to buy slip-on shoes? right? The Skechers memory foam where you slip right in, you don't have to bend over. Because when shoelaces are involved, it is a skill. It's a skill they lose. Now, 2 weeks ago, I could have given them tennis shoes. They could have laced them up, tied them. Everything was fine. Today, I give my dad his 2 tennis shoes, and he looks at me like, are you crazy? What do I do now? Because it doesn't connect that I need to put my foot in, pull the tongue up, and lace my shoes. And this is where frustration comes in for those living with dementia. Because 2 weeks ago, they may have been able to do it, but today they can't. So our little saying is some days they can, some days they can't. Okay? We always have to remember that. They get just as frustrated when they cannot do a task as we as caregivers get frustrated with them. Because I have heard family members say, hand on hip, they're just trying to manipulate me so I'll put their shoes on. My mother is always a manipulative person. She just wants me to put her shoes on and tie them for her. No, not necessarily. Truly, today is the day she can't remember how to do it. So again, we have to take a deep breath and we have to say, this person's mind is changing and we have to be patient with them. Any questions or comments? Okay. Unable to get started on a task. Okay, this morning I wake up and I want a bowl of cereal. I want a bowl of cereal. Tell me, what do we need to get to make a bowl of cereal? Got to get the bowl. And where's the bowl at? In one of many cupboards, possibly, right? What do we need next? Cereal. Where's the cereal? Oh, it's in the pantry. It's in the corner of the kitchen. It's down in the Lazy Susan. It's on top of the refrigerator. If you're Jerry Seinfeld, you have them in a bookcase across the kitchen. I mean, there's all kinds of places to put your cereal. Okay? So we have a bowl. We have cereal. What else do we have? Milk. Where's the milk? In the refrigerator. How hard is it to open a refrigerator door if there's no handle and you're just supposed to put your, you know what I'm talking about? Some refrigerators don't have the handle to pull. You go this way and pull it. So now you have to try to open that refrigerator door to get your milk. What else do you need? A spoon. And where could those spoons be located? In some drawer somewhere in the kitchen. So it's not uncommon to see somebody living with dementia open every single drawer and cupboard looking for something. Okay? So we have our bowl, we have our spoon, we have our cereal, we have our milk. But today I want Rice Krispies. And with my Rice Krispies, I want some sugar. So where's the sugar at? In the cabinet, in the sugar bowl, in little packets up by the coffee maker, in the pantry, in a little packet somewhere. Some people take those little freebies, you know, when you get the plasticware from Wendy's and they keep all the little stuff in there. So the sugar could be anywhere. And now I decided, because they're Rice Krispies, I want a banana. Where am I going to find my bananas? Maybe on the counter. Maybe on that cute little banana holder. Some people put bananas in a brown paper bag in the refrigerator so they don't get ripe as fast. What am I going to need to slice up my banana? Butter knife. Another drawer. So I have spread all these things out. I want a bowl of cereal. So I take the bowl, I take the spoon, and I start eating air. unable to get started on this task. The task of pouring cereal, pouring milk, putting some sugar, putting a banana and slicing it up. Very, very complicated steps that you and I take for granted every single day that we're able to do that. Okay? Yes. The more we can involve our people living with dementia, they feel autonomous, they feel important, they feel independent, and we don't want to take that away. So if we can start and give them a project, maybe we can show them how to take the butter knife and start slicing the bananas while we're pouring the cereal and getting the milk ready. But we always want to try to involve them if they're capable and not take away all of that independence. Excellent question. We'll get stuck in a moment of time. Okay. So I always think of this one patient. Has anybody ever seen a snag in carpeting? Like just a small snag. Well, this patient, every time I went to the house, that was all he was fixated on. When are you going to fix that? When are you going to fix that? Then we talk. When are you going to fix that? That has to go. When are you going to fix it? And it was time after time after time. They get fixated on something. What time is it? What time is it? What's your name? What's your name? So when I visit the nursing homes, you see a lot of this. The same exact repetitious vocalization. What's your name? What's your name? What's your name? What time is it? What time is it? What time is it? What time is bingo? What time is bingo? What time is bingo? Okay? So the same things over and over. Now, what do we do to try to defer that? Is we refocus their attention onto something else. Okay? So if this young lady is asking me over and over what my name is, I'm going to say, well, Miss Luell, my name is Kelly. Let's go for a walk together and look at the new birdhouse. I want to distract her and get her not thinking about my name. So distraction works the majority of the time. Okay? Unable to successfully place a person. I think the saddest thing is to watch your loved one not remember you. And especially at end of life, when you go visit your mother that you've been visiting every day, and they say, help, help, who are you? Get out of my room. I don't know who you are. Get out, get out. I'm your daughter, Kelly. I don't have a daughter. Get out. Help, somebody help me. This happens in nursing homes so many times that the day comes, and even though the pictures of all the grandkids and children are on the counters, that is the day they forget who you are. And that is a knife in the heart when it's your loved one and they don't remember who you are. Has that personally happened to anybody? A couple people? It's not a very pleasant feeling whatsoever, because you just want to go like this and say, you know who I am, you know who I am. And the more you say it, you know my name is Kelly. You know I'm your daughter. Nah, that part of the brain is just not working. Okay. Words won't come even with visual, verbal, or touch cues. So I may say to Miss Ella, I picked your name as Ella for some reason. I may say to Miss Ella, do you want a drink of water? And I'm holding a water bottle. and Miss Ella looks at me like I have 3 horns in my head. I may say to Miss Helen, "Are you cold? Do you want a sweater?" And she's going, "I wonder what that person's doing this for." Okay? So even though we use clues and cues, and we may show somebody a pencil or a book, it means absolutely nothing to them. But we should always try cues and clues, bless you, and try to see if they'll take that from you, but don't count on it. It usually doesn't happen. Confused between the past and the present. So we had a gentleman that was in the banking industry, and he wore a gray suit to work every single day of his banking career. Now, he's been retired over 25 years, but he still thinks he's a banker. So every day he gets up, he puts his gray suit on, and he sits downstairs on the couch and waits for his wife to take him to the bank. And every day she comes down and with a negative attitude says, "Charlie, you are retired. You don't work at the bank anymore. Now go upstairs and change." So one day, our social worker was at the house, and the social worker took the wife aside, and she said to him, that's his routine. He feels like he's still going to the bank. So what we'd like you to do is, "Charlie, today is a holiday. The banks are closed, but after you change, I have some things I want you to do for our finances." And what we do in our Memory Partners program, if somebody was a banker, we will buy them one of those triplicate checkbooks. We'll buy them a calculator. We'll save receipts from CVS. Oh, that's wonderful. That's the best thing in the world because they're that long. And we'll have them calculate all the numbers and write it down in the book. So we give them a project that has to do with banking. If it's somebody that maybe was a handyman, we will get things together, and a lot of it is donations, or if we have the money as a nonprofit, we have people that give donations. We may buy a toolbox and give a little wood project to start, not with pointy Sharpie nails and not left unattended, but just something for them to do their career. We had a florist. She was able to walk and still get around, and we would bring flowers to her and have her put them in vases, and that would make her feel so good. So sometimes you have to think outside the box and get people doing things that otherwise nobody would spend the time with. Personality and behaviors will be different. People can become very aggressive, and they were the sweet little church lady that would never ever say a bad word about anything. People can become really, really nice, and they were curmudgeonly their whole life. People can pull hair. People can spit at you, try to trip you when you're walking. We've seen all of these behaviors. We cover 12 counties. I'm in every nursing home. I've seen a lot of it, and I'm sure Carrie has too. So what we want to do is figure out, why are they behaving that way? What's going on with them? So there's a little verse. Beneath every behavior there is a feeling, and beneath every feeling there is a need. Meet the need rather than focusing on their behavior, and things will be a lot different. So what could their needs be? Say I'm the director of nursing at nursing home ABC, and I want all the residents to be in a semicircle at 11 o'clock in the activity room because bingo starts at 12. That's my rule. So all the nurse aides bring all the people in a semicircle in their wheelchairs or their walkers or whatever, and they bring them an hour early to start bingo. Don't you think things are happening with those people? Maybe they have to pee. Maybe they're hungry. Maybe they're bored. Maybe they just don't want to be there. Maybe they don't like the person they're sitting next to. You know, we have to look at, are they hungry? Are they thirsty? And instead of saying, do you want a drink of water? Let me just go get Miss Ella a drink of water and put it up to her lips. That may be her unmet need that she kicked you for. Okay? It's simple things like that. We don't ask people, do you have to go to the bathroom? Like a child on your way to Target, do you have to go potty before we leave? No, Mom, no. As soon as we get into Target, I have to go to the bathroom. It is no different than with adults. So what we should say is, let's go for a walk to the bathroom and let's just see what's down there. Instead of saying, do you have to pee? Offer them and walk with them somewhere, okay? But we do see a lot of behavioral changes as dementia advances, and we hear cuss words. We have daughters who say, my mother would never use a cuss word. I've never heard my own father use a cuss word, but if he ever got dementia, he may be swearing bloody murder to me. And I have to accept that's part of the behavioral changes in the brain. Okay, so hopefully nobody is fitting the second category. Everybody's good? Okay, do you need a stretch break before we go into the next part? Okay, I need a water break. Okay, every time I start a presentation, I always want to set some outcomes. What do I want you to learn when you leave today? I want you to be able to identify 3 characteristics of normal and not normal aging. And think of the examples that we used today. I want you to become more familiar with the 4 different types of dementia that we're going to talk about. I want you to be able to identify somebody who has dementia and hospice. And I want you to be able to practice hand under hand technique. Excuse me. So a couple little facts that are not on your sheet. In the United States, 1 person is diagnosed with dementia every 65 seconds. That, to me, blows my mind. This is an older statistic, but it still holds the same in 2024. Alzheimer's disease is the 6th leading cause of death in the United States. That's pretty shocking. In 2019, and remember the CDC is always behind on giving us statistics, but in 2019, Alzheimer's and other dementias cost the United States $290 billion with a B, billion dollars. And by 2050, these costs could rise to 1.1 trillion. Okay? 1 in 3 seniors will die from Alzheimer's or another type of dementia. It kills more people than breast cancer and prostate cancer combined. So exactly what is dementia? It's a chemical change in the brain. It's a structural change in the brain. It comes and goes. Sometimes they can, sometimes they can't. So the structural changes, you have cell death. So there's areas of the brain that are dying and they become dark or black. And when there's cell death, it causes a hole. Has anybody seen one of those brown sponges that you wash your car and you get at the $1.25 store? Not the dollar store, the $1.25 store. So it doesn't scratch your car or anything. So we use those. Think of that as somebody's brain who's living with dementia. All of those different potholes in the brain. There's lots of chemical changes, plaque form on the brain. And when you get a lot of plaque, you get certain types of dementia. Protein deposits can go on the brain. But dementia really equals brain failure. The brain is failing. The brain is dying, okay? The 4 truths about dementia. 2 parts of the brain are dying. It is chronic. It cannot be fixed. It is progressive. It will get worse. And it is terminal. Now, I was at a church group a couple years ago. It was a ladies' group. And I said that dementia was terminal, and I had somebody crying so hard she had to leave the room. So she waited for me after the event, and we talked, and she said, my mom goes to a gerontologist, has had dementia for years, and that doctor has never told me that it's a terminal condition. And so we always want to be, every piece of information I'm giving you is on the internet or through TIPA Snow. So there's no fabrication of anything, but it's a very serious illness. It changes everything over time. It is not something a person can control. You can tell them to stop doing something and tell them again and tell them again, and they continue doing it, because their brain doesn't have the ability to stop. It is not the same for every person. So I could have 3 people up here with various types of dementia, and all 3 may have different types of behaviors and different types of how they're acting and how their disease is progressing and so forth. It is not a mental illness. Now, think back to the 1940s, 50s, and 60s. We put people in psychiatric institutions because they were a little cuckoo. Were they really a little cuckoo, or did they have a form of dementia that we didn't even know about yet? Probably. A lot of people were institutionalized and they really had a form of dementia. So shame on us, but at least now we have the tools to know the different types of dementia and how to help with behaviors and help more people than what we used to. It is very real, and it's very hard at times, not just for the person, but for the caregiver. So on your next sheet, we're going to talk about the 4 most common types of dementia. How many of you have heard of Alzheimer's? All of us. So it really ruffles my feather when somebody I know says, oh, they've got Alzheimer's. I said, really? Now, how did you come to that conclusion? Well, they couldn't think of my name the other day when I saw them. Okay. They couldn't remember what year they were married. Well, ask my husband. He'd have to do one of these, okay? Can't remember our anniversary, again. So that doesn't mean you have Alzheimer's, but I hear that in the public. Oh, they've just got Alzheimer's. That's not necessarily true. So if you look at dementia as a big umbrella, say I pop open a big umbrella, and on the top of the umbrella it says dementia. On each spoke of the umbrella are different types of dementia. The word dementia just means a group of symptoms. A group of symptoms. And then when we get into the spokes, those are the specific types of dementia. How many types of dementia do you think are out there? Take a just jab. 25, 10, 100, about 100. And I was like, oh my gosh, when I first found out about it. But we have to remember there's dementias from alcohol abuse, where your brain literally gets fried after drinking for 50 years, 12-pack of beer. There's dementia from brain injury accidents, near drowning kind of accidents. There's dementia from people who have fevers for prolonged months, 102, 103 fevers. It burns those cells, they die and they shrink, okay? So Alzheimer's, new details are lost first. So I taught Miss Emma how to tie her shoes today. And now this afternoon, her shoelaces are untied. And I say, Miss Emma, tie your shoelaces. And she looks at me like, what? New information is lost first. So she cannot remember what I told her this morning. Okay? So we have to remember that. Recent memory is worse. What did you have for breakfast this morning, Miss Emma? I don't know. Tell me about your first grade experience when you went to first grade all by yourself. Oh, the bus came in front of my house and picked me up and took me to school. So she remembers her first grade episode, but can't remember to tie her shoes. That's how the brain is working. Okay? There are some language problems and misspeaks. So language problems can be garbled. A watch may be called a hand clock, a wrist clock, because they can't think of the word watch. Their little dog, instead of being called Buffy, it may be wag dog tail, because they can't remember Buffy. So they make up their own little vocabulary, and their caregivers learn what things mean. The longer you're with somebody, you learn what they're saying. Okay? They're more impulsive and very indecisive. And we teach the nursing assistants and families, do not give more than 2 choices. Would you like to wear the red sweater or the blue sweater? Do not ask them, what do you want to wear today? You will be there forever. Do you want a banana or do you want an apple? Don't ask them, what do you want for breakfast? You will be there till dinner trying to figure it out. So 2 choices. That is all they can handle. Okay? So don't overwhelm them with multiple choices. Very impulsive. So has anybody seen on the I-140 or the I-40 those silver alerts? That means somebody with a form of dementia has wandered away, and we're all looking for that person because they're in danger. They don't know how to act outside their realm of their house and so forth. So they can walk around the block every day for 30 years and they come home, but today they walk and they keep walking and they keep walking and nothing looks the same, and they keep walking, and before you know it, they're lost. They may drive to the bank every Friday for 50 years, and today they get in the car and nothing looks familiar, and they keep driving and driving and driving, and they get lost. My girlfriend's father went to take out the trash a few weeks ago, and he just kept taking the can all the way down the road, made a left turn, went out onto the interstate. He was just supposed to be taking the can back to the driveway. But he has severe Alzheimer's, and he got lost in his own driveway in his own street. So these things do happen. a lot of times seasons mean nothing. So it could be bloody hot outside, 95 degrees, and they've got their winter coat and a scarf and mittens and a hat, and they're sitting there. Or it could be wintertime and they put on shorts and a t-shirt, a sleeveless t-shirt on and flip-flops in the morning, and there's a foot of snow. So they lose track of seasons, and they lose track of months and holidays and dates and all these kind of things. We do have some young onset Alzheimer's. We've had a couple patients that have been in their 40s and 50s. When you're diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease is at autopsy. That is 100% the way to diagnose it. But by the caregiver giving the doctor all the information about what they're doing and what they're acting like, the doctor can kind of determine, they probably have Alzheimer's disease from what you're telling me, okay? But the 100% true way is by autopsy. So the young onset, by the time they're diagnosed, they can still live another 5 to 7 years. They've got healthy lungs, healthy heart, healthy kidneys. It's just their brain that is shrinking and dying. So we want to mention that there is a thing as young onset. We will notice progressive decline in their changes about every 6 to 12 months. They just kind of go a little bit down the hill. So when somebody with Alzheimer's is hospice eligible, they usually can't feed themselves, bathe themselves, make their own food. They can't comb their hair. They can't brush their teeth. They have to walk with a cane or a walker or holding on to somebody. They have urinary tract infections, respiratory infections. They've fallen a couple times. They've aspirated on food. They may have bed sores. They've been in the hospital a couple times. That's a true hospice kind of diagnosis. That's kind of the picture with all of these parameters that Medicare sets forward. Our next one is Lewy body dementia. Has anybody heard of Lewy body? Oh, this is a huge class for Lewy body. Personal experience or just reading about it? Personal. I think it's just a really sad type of dementia because a family member of mine had it. But they start off with very stiff joints, and they almost walk like the Tim drum, like this. Or you may notice them walking without moving their arms, and they do this, and they keep their arms real still. So sometimes you can think of people present day that you can watch and they never move their arms and they walk, okay? That usually is an early sign of Lewy body dementia. Because their joints are so stiff, they happen to have the dirtiest shirts ever because they hold their cup up and they can't bend their elbow, so they drink their coffee this way and it spills all the way down. Okay, so they tend to have that look of being disheveled when they could be the neatest person in the world, but they don't have that flexure to be doing those kind of things, to be combing their hair, to be brushing their teeth, getting dressed, zippering kind of things. So very stiff. A lot of times doctors may diagnose them as Parkinson's disease because they trip over their own feet when they're walking, and we're calling them clumsy. When they're really not clumsy, they really have something going on underneath. So we kind of have to be careful of our verbiage with that. Visual disturbances. They see a lot of things happening that you and I will never see, and we have to believe them, okay? The worst thing that we can possibly do is tell them that they are not seeing what they're seeing. Now, I hope I don't offend any of you, but some of the common things they seem to see are orgies. Their husband or wife have a group of their friends in the back, and They're having a good old time. And I remember my aunt calling me saying, "You've got to get up here. Uncle Mike has all these women in our living room, and I'm just so upset about it." We hear this from a lot of families that are living with somebody with Lewy body, that they have these kind of hallucinations. They see things that aren't there. They see things under their bed. There's a man hiding under my bed, and he has a knife, and he's going to slash me as soon as you leave. There's a bear in the corner, and he has a machete, and he's going to rip me to pieces as soon as you open that door. So what we do is we get on our knees, you go under the bed, and you say, "Get out of this room right now. Get out. She doesn't want you here anymore." And you do this, and you open the door, and you go, "Get out and don't come back," and you shut the door. And the person in the bed is like, "Oh, thank you, thank you." You chase out the bear. You chase out the people in the corner. You chase out whatever it is. A lot of times they see bugs on their plate. And they may say, "I can't eat it. I can't eat it. There's bugs all over." And what we want to do as healthcare professionals and caregivers is to get rid of those bugs. So what we're going to do is we're going to brush those bugs off. And then you ask the person living with Lewy body, "Are they all gone now? Because I told them not to come back." "Oh, thank you, thank you." So we have to put ourselves in their shoes, because it is very, very frightening to have these kind of images going on right in your living room and being afraid. They don't sleep a whole lot. They're up 20 hours a day. They're so afraid of falling asleep and something happening to them. Well, guess what happens to their caregivers? They are exhausted. Okay? So we just need to keep that in mind. They have lots of nightmares. Their nightmares tend to be about scary animals. There's been lots of research on things when people go ahead and do interviews with Lewy body, but just big grizzly type animals or being shoved in a snake pit was another story I had read about. So it just is very, very real to them, and very scary kind of disease. They don't respond to medicines very well. It's one of the few dementias that we have a hard time getting their behaviors and some of their hallucinations under control. So I know Seroquel is a drug of choice. Haldol is usually contraindicated, so we don't usually use that. Vascular dementia means you're having little mini strokes, blood flow to the brain is compromised, oxygen is compromised, so there's sudden changes. You could be moving along fine for 3 weeks, and boom, you have a little bit of a mini stroke, the blood is interrupted, little plaque is forming. Well, on your good day is the day that your family takes you to the doctor. And the doctor says, "I have no idea what you're talking about. Your dad is perfectly fine to me. He knows what time it is and month and day and this and that." And then you take him home, and the following week, he's having all these problems again. So we have to remember that these are the people, some days are good, some days are bad. Emotional energy. These are types of dementia where people either laugh nonstop or cry nonstop, or they're always very teary-eyed. Okay? So I could be walking, I trip and fall, and Miss Lula says, "Ha ha 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 ha," because she thinks it's real funny that I fell. But then you can also, my brother-in-law's mom had the crying episodes, and she was non-consolable, no matter what you did. Finally, toward the end of her life, she loved little kids. They bought her a baby doll, and she would just stroke that baby doll over and over, and that consoled her, and she'd hold it up, and she would kiss it and so forth. We should have thought of that earlier, but we didn't. But it's real hard to console people who have these kind of things going on. Very unpredictable again, very spotty history. So again, anytime they have these little mini strokes, it all adds up to bigger areas of cell shrinkage, cell destruction, and so forth. Our last type of dementia is frontal temporal. So if you look at this, you're looking at the front of the brain and then the side of the brain. So if everybody could put your fingers out like this, slap them on your forehead and side, these are all the affected areas of the brain that are happening. So think of Swiss cheese and all the little holes that Swiss cheese has in it. These are people who are very rude. They just say things like they are. We may have heard them at the grocery store. My personal favorite story is going to a nursing home in Brunswick County, and it was activity time, and everybody was lined up in their semicircle, and I had to walk in front of them to go to the conference room to speak. So one of the employees was taking me, and I was following her, and she was a very large lady. And one of the men said, "Well, you have a big fat butt." And I was like, and she says, "I know I do, and my husband loves it." And she just kept walking on. And I just went backward going, I don't want anybody saying anything. But they just are very rude. They may be in the supermarket and they may point out, "Boy, she has a big nose," or "Oh, what an ugly sweater she has on." Now, who acts like that? Little kids, right? They see something like that, they make a comment out loud. Again, the brain is shrinking and cells are dying. When that brain shrinks to like this, that's the size of a 3 or 4-year-old's brain. So that's why they have so much in common with the way they spurt things out. They have a lot of problems with sequential things. ABCs, 1, 2, 3, cereal bowl, what goes in it, and so forth. So doing things in sequence are very, very hard for them to do. They're very disinhibited. So these are your folks that will pull their zipper down on their pants. They may fondle somebody at a nursing home. They may masturbate in front of people. It's just one of those things that they are just exhibitionists. And in the old days when I was an aide, almost 50 years ago, I worked at a nursing home. And if somebody did that out in public, we would make them go to their room and we would say, you don't get any lunch. Now remember, that was 50 years ago. We would never do that now. But what we do say is, zip up your pants and let's go walk over here and see the new birdhouse that was just put up. So you want to distract them. You don't want to give in like, "Bad person, don't do that again. If you do that again, you're in trouble." That's the worst thing we can do. Acknowledge their behavior, tell them to zip up their pants, and let's move along. Okay? And they are also foodies. And by that, I mean anything you put in front of them, they will eat. So when they come in for respite care over at our care centers and their caregiver needs a break, they come in for 5 nights and 6 days, and they have never seen food like they get. And if you put a whole chocolate cake in front of them, they will take their hands and they will just go ahead and just put the whole cake in their mouth. And they may vomit, and then they want more. So their brain doesn't register that they're full. So we have to be very careful of that we don't give them too much to eat. Quickly, because I know our time is right here at the end, but quickly, I just want to show you something real fast. And I think I'll be able to shout enough. When we get older, after the age of 65, we all lose peripheral vision. No ifs, ands, or buts. So, now I can pretty much see the tips of my fingers. But as I get older, I'm not going to be able to maybe see past my middle arm. Okay? People living with dementia lose their peripheral vision. So, what was that? I'm sorry. Um, so people who lose their peripheral, was it the microphone that rolled? Oh, great, thank you. Thank you. So what we want to do is we all take a trip to the $1.25 store. I haven't gotten over that yet. They need to change their signs, okay? And we're going to buy a pair of scuba diving glasses. We're all going down to the beach. So everybody put your scuba glasses on. Everybody put your scuba glasses on. And tell me what you are missing out on seeing by having your scuba glasses on. Peripheral, what else? Everything above, everything below. We go back to the $1.25 store and we buy binoculars. So as the dementia advances and progresses, they now have binocular vision. So put your binoculars on. And what's missing? Pretty much all your peripheral vision, you're above and you're below. When you're hospice eligible, you have monocular. So if I went up to you and you're sitting in a wheelchair and I go like this, hey Mary, she's probably either going to slap me out of a reflex, she may pull my hair, spit on me, trip, do something, scream, yell. She did not expect me to come from behind and do anything. So to wrap our conversation up today, the positive approach to care, okay? So Mary, you're going to pretend that you are in the activity center and your head's kind of down. And what's your first name? Cindy. I'll call you Cindy then. Your head's kind of down, and I'm going to call Cindy's name twice. I want to get her attention. So the first thing I want to do is I want to start 6 feet in front of Cindy, okay? I want to be non-threatening. So I always stand in front of Cindy. Can you move over? Okay. We didn't even practice that. Okay. So Cindy has her head down, and I'm going to say, Cindy, Cindy. Okay, she's looking up. I got her attention. What I'm going to do is spread my 5 fingers out, and I want her to look at that this is a friendly. If I go like this, she may think I'm going to swat her. I want her to know that this is a comfort level. And as I get Cindy's attention, and it may take 10 times to call Cindy before she picks her head up, I'm going to extend my arm. I'm going to walk slowly, looking at Cindy with a smile on my face. I'm Kelly. I'm going to take you to the craft room. And so I'm going to kneel down. Now look at this. It's called hand under hand. I'm going to wrap my hand around her thumb, put my other hand underneath so she can rest on it, and then we'll be able to talk eye level. If I was to stand in front of Cindy and say, Cindy, we're going to go do activities. That's condescending, and I'm looking over her. If I came to her side and said, hey, Cindy, she's going to jump or do something unexpected. So that's why that positive approach is to the front of somebody at their eye level, leaning in, off to the side a little tiny bit, so she can still see me in her visual field, okay? That's how we approach somebody that we know has dementia. So maybe at church, you may have a foyer gathering after. This would be something nice to practice with somebody that you know is living with dementia. Okay, that's called the positive approach to care, and it's in your little handout. Any questions at all? Yes.
First of all, before we open for questions, and thank you, Kelly, this has been so good. I want to just share a resource that we have with us, Holly Netterman, if she'd stand up. Holly runs a support group down at the library, the southeast, whatever, library down in Calabash. And so, as a local resource, I just wanted to introduce you to her so that then you can ask questions of Kelly and everything. So I just wanted to take a moment to do that.
Thank you so much, Sue. I really appreciate it. So my name is Holly Netterman. I moved here in 2021 from Connecticut. I was a former executive director of an assisted living and mind and memory community with 145 apartments. I also worked in the memory care prior to that for many years, so I have a great deal of background as far as dementia is concerned. So what I found when I first moved down here, and I was just working part-time in a local store, I found that quite a few people, because we're all retired and moving to the same area, correct? Quite a few people would come to me and we'd chat and I'd tell them what I had done and they'd look at me and say, my spouse, I think, has dementia. So I said, So I said, if you'd like me to pop over, I can talk to you about it, give you some local resources. And so that started to gel. Last August, I ended up registering with the state of North Carolina. The name of my business is Senior Living Solutions. So what I do is I go into the home, if you so want me to. I do a mini mental estate exam to see where your loved one is at that moment. I talk to them about doctors. Are they seeing a neurologist? Are they not? Should they? Should they not? And then we talk about some of the changes that are happening in the home that have become very difficult for the caregiver. I try to come up with a plan for them. Sometimes it's just a calendar-based plan, a daily calendar-based plan. I talk to them about the different changes that are occurring. One example would be, I have a client whose husband can no longer find the bathroom at night. Actually, he finds the bathroom, but he can't find the toilet. So with what we were just talking about with the vision loss, he can't find the toilet. He's looking for something dark, right? And he'll walk in there and typically he's going to urinate in the basket. So what I said was, go on Amazon and buy a black toilet seat. She went on Amazon, bought the black toilet seat, removed the basket, and he has not had any problems since that. Sometimes it's also good to paint the backdrop of the toilet, paint just that one wall so it's dark. So when he walks in, he can see that that's where he needs to go. So it's just little things like that doctors, your 30-minute appointment that you would be going to see a doctor, they're not going to know that that's happening in the home. And if you do tell them about that, they might not know what advice to give you. So those are just some of the little things. Also about eating with, monocular vision. So how would you feel if you could not see anything but straight ahead and someone was bringing a fork up to your mouth and you had no idea what was going in your mouth? Wouldn't that make you feel uncomfortable? So another way to do that is to bring the fork up straight in and introduce what you're feeding, right? Say, oh, these are mashed potatoes that I just made. They're so delicious. You don't want to give too much information, but just enough to make that person's dignity still in check. So dignity is one of the biggest things that I talk about at my support groups. So I started a support group last year. It is the first Thursday of every month, and it's at the Southwest Brunswick Branch Library, which is on 17. It's just past Crow Creek. And it's at 12:30, the first Thursday. I'm going to pass these out so you have that. If you know of anyone that needs these services, this is just specific to dementia. Quite a few of the support groups that are in the area, it's to support, whether it's Parkinson's or cancer. This is just specific to dementia. I educate and guide, okay? The senior living advisor portion is that what I do is, as I watch my clients progress with the disease, we come up with a plan. Is it now time to move into a community, a memory care community? We have lots of communities out there. The loved one may say, no, I want them to stay at home. That's when we say, okay, next steps are caregivers. This is where Life Care comes in, and we go from there. We talk about the hospice. We talk about little signs and symptoms that they're seeing that, you know, he's lost a lot of weight in the last month. Let's get palliative care in here. And that's when I refer. So there's a lot of things that go on in the home that doctors or your friends can't tell you what to do. That's why I'm here. So I'm going to pass out these. Please, if you know of anyone that needs these services of the support group, please hand them this and let them know that I'm also there, and I'll have some cards available too. Thank you so much.
Kelly, I know probably there are some questions. Are there, do you have questions? That'd be great. I just want to take this moment, though, to thank you. Thank you for coming. This has been so informative. And I will open it up to questions and then see what happens.
The only thing I wanted to say is I thought we would get to it, and we didn't get to it. I gave you a stapled version of the gemstones, and these again are by Teepa Snow, and it's the behaviors and personalities of the different gems and what happens with dementia. So the diamond is rough and tough, just like the gemstone. They're very rigid. They like everything to be in perfect order. They have kind of OCD kind of things. So the personality you had before being diagnosed a lot of times is reflected in that specific gemstone. So on the back side, it gives you a little information about the specific gems. And then also a booklet that we give out to our memory care partners. We have a caregiving support group too up in Wilmington. But the more resources you can get, the more help we can do for our communities. We're all in this together. And I'm just proud to say, as a nonprofit status, we are able to write grants and help people living with dementia get respite care and services and so forth. So again, I thank everybody. If there's no questions, you've been a great audience. I thank Carrie in the back for setting everything up. And of course, I thank you for allowing us into your church.